I'd like to open and welcome you to today's session of Speaker's Corner. My name is Gabor Zinner. I'm one of the organizers. Thank you. 2 appreciative people, 3 appreciative people. That's great. So as some of you may know, I was listening to the CBC recently, and I was listening to an interview with the president of the CBC, and he was going on, it had to do with budget cuts and what have you, and he got into the mandate of the CBC, and it's expressed very succinctly in 3 simple words. Their mandate is to inform, to enlighten, and to entertain. And I thought, what a great slogan for us to steal, because that's basically what we want to do. And so this is an opportunity for us to raise the bar a bit in terms of intellectual discourse here in town, create another opportunity for civic participation. And for those of you who are here for the first time, we look for topics of interest in order to allow and to air topical issues. Some arouse passion, some less so. But we try to make it as topical and as interesting as we can. We have a committee of organizers, and they've really put their shoulders behind behind the wheel, isn't it? Behind the wheel, to try to deliver the best program we can. Today we're going to have a talk, 2 speakers on Egypt, and it should may interest you to know that this is our 2nd season, and we had a very good kickoff last year. A number of topics, including 2 leaders of 2 provincial parties. But of all the topics the greatest interest was aroused by a debate on Egypt. And the debate on Egypt was entitled whether or not the ouster of Mohamed Morsi will advance or hinder the progress of democratic and economic progress in Egypt. And little did we know when we had that debate how things would turn out. And it's still very, very topical. And we have a topic of really profound humanitarian concern. Those 529, and it's probably a larger number now, individuals who've been condemned to death on the basis of a half-an-hour trial. In any event, so we have 2 speakers today to address the topic. And the topic for today is whether or not Bairds' visit to Egypt will harm Canada's standing in the international community. I'm going to call on Dr. Aliyah Bailey to introduce the 2 speakers, and I'm sure you'll be stimulated. Aliyah?
Thank you. I'd like to also thank everyone for coming out today. I know there's a lot going on in the city. Our topic, as we put in the news, is Be It Resolved, John Baird's trip to Egypt has hurt Canada's international image. A lot of people think that it has. It sends out a strong message as to what Canada's stand is in many people's view. We were trying to get somebody to speak in favor of the regime there right now, but as you will see, we have 2 speakers speaking on interesting viewpoints, but unfortunately, nobody felt safe enough to come forward and speak for the regime, which is interesting. And so we will call on our first speaker today, and that would be Kamal Hamed. He is working as a senior principal consultant at Oracle. He is an Egyptian activist and co-founder of the Egyptian-Canadian Coalition of Democracy, otherwise known as the ECCD. And he is director at the Calgary Confederation Federal Liberal Association. And he is married to this beautiful woman up in the front here. And I call upon Kamal.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Speaker's Corner for giving us this opportunity to explain our point of view as well as our concern about the visit. I'd like to thank Mr. Gabor and Dr. Aliyah for this. I'd like to thank you as well for attending for us.
Just getting you a little more volume.
Okay.
Thank you.
First of all, let me ask you, what does it mean when a foreign minister visit the country. It means we know what you are doing and we are supporting you of what you are doing. So this is a message from the government of Canada to the government of Egypt. Go on and continue what you are doing because we are supporting you and we are standing up for you as well. So let's see what they are doing. I mean, what the Egyptian government is doing since the oust of President Morsi. I collected some information, some facts about the situation in Egypt, and it's collected from a very well-known and very trusted organizations like Amnesty, like Human Rights Watch, from even Carter Center. So let's see the facts about the numbers happening in Egypt so far. From July 3rd, 2013 to date, more than 41,000 people have been arrested, detained in prisons for no charges, most of them for no charges. They don't even have the chance to see a lawyer or to see their families since the oust of Dr. Morsi. Out of the 41,000, 1,000 physicians, 2,000 engineers, 12,000 students, 700 women, 650 children, 17 journalists, and 120 university professors, all in prison of almost no charges. This is only the 41,000 in prison. Let's see the other ones. 1,200 sentenced to death just in 2 courts. Each court only 30 minutes. 8,000 was killed, of which of them 2,000 in one raid, which is Rab'a raid. In Human Rights Watch, they called it the most serious incident of mass unlawful killings in the modern Egyptian history. Happened in 6 hours only. They didn't only kill them, they even burned their bodies in order not to count them, not to recognize them. What other organizations saying about the situation in Egypt? I'll talk about the Carter Center statement on the legal and political context of Egypt presidential election, dated May 16th. They just announced this report to highlight what's happening in Egypt and what about the coming presidential election. The Carter Center is concerned about the restrictive political and legal context surrounding Egypt's electoral process. Also, the deep political polarization that threatens the country's transition. This is from the report dated May 16th from Carter Center. So after all of this information, I didn't say everything, by the way. It's only something like 1/10 of the fact happening in Egypt. I didn't talk about the rapes. I didn't talk about that thousands of people in Egypt, even if they are not under arrest now, they can't stay at home because they are afraid of being arrested. I know most of my friends, they can't even sleep at their homes because they are afraid of being arrested. And when they go there to arrest them and they don't find them, they arrest their brothers and sisters in order to force them to come to surrender themselves in the police stations. So if this is the situation now in Egypt, do you believe as Canadians you support a government like this and you send your Minister of Foreign Affairs to visit them, to support them, to encourage them of what they are doing for us? I'm presenting here the liberals in the Egyptian community and the Egyptian society. We don't really concern who's the Egyptian president, as long as they went through a very right and the very known procedures for elections, from the selection to the election. And we elected one already. and this one is Dr. Morsi, and he's the only one we recognize as liberals as our president. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamala. We really appreciate that. Sorry. I'm trying to do too many things at once. And now we're going to call on our second speaker, Mohammed Hassanin, who is a human rights activist, specifically when it comes to issues in Egypt and the Middle East. He's co-organized various protests in the city regarding the situation in Egypt right now, as well as awareness campaigns at the University of Calgary. He is also a recent graduate from the University of Calgary with a master's degree in biochemistry. He was president of the Biological Sciences Graduate Students Association, and he was advocate on behalf of the students in this biological science department. He's currently working for a biotech company, and I now present to you Mohammed.
Thank you very much. Check. First of all, I want to thank the organizer of the Speaker's Corner for hosting this event, and thank you all for coming. You know, in the Egyptian countryside, there are two main methods for removing water from the river or the pond to irrigate your crops. Two main methods. The first one is you can use what's called a machine of some sort, or a pump. And this uses a diesel engine. You move the water from the river, put it on your crops, and you have your crops, and they grow, and then you can sell them and all that stuff. The other method is a little more traditional, and it involves using an animal of some sort. Most often it could be a cow, it could be a horse, or it could be a donkey. And what happens here is that you have this animal hooked up to a central rod, attached to a central axle. And as this animal revolves around and around the central axis, it's hooked up to a water wheel, it's connected to the water. Water moves to the river, or from the river or the pond, moves onto your crops, and you have irrigation. What's really interesting about these animals, though, is that, this was back when I was in Egypt in 2011. I noticed that these animals have these visors on their eyes from the side. And, I was intrigued, so I asked one of the farmers, why do they have these visors on the side of their eyes? And the guy told me, this is to make sure they don't get dizzy. And I don't know if he was actually joking at the time, or this was the actual truth, but, I just took it in stride and I just went away. You see, this animal who's revolving around and around and around to carry the water, I guess, to force the gears to move the water from the river and the pond to the irrigation systems, is basically what the military dictatorship in Egypt right now wants to see as the Egyptian person. They want to equate that individual as the Egyptian person. What do I mean by that? It basically means that you, as an Egyptian citizen, you have 5 main purposes. The first one, you eat, you work, you go to the bathroom, you have kids, and the last one is, I forgot the last one. Doesn't matter. There's lots of them.
Pay tax.
So 5 basic things. If you're gonna ask about human rights, no, that's too bad for you. If you're asking about, freedom of speech, if you want to speak your mind freely and openly, buddy, no, that's too much for you. If you want a clean environment for your kids, no, that's too much. You're asking for too much. And so this is basically what the military dictatorship in Egypt has been promoting and has been attempting to maintain ever since 1952. 1952, Egypt has been under the Ottoman Empire for a number of years, and then basically have a number of free Egyptian officers. They came in, they told the Ottoman king at that time, get out of here, and he basically left, and they took over. Ever since 1952, Egypt has been given from one president to the next, all of them generals from the military, starting with Mohammed Naguib, going on to Gamal Abdel Nasser, then Anwar Sadat, then Hosni Mubarak, the last one, who ruled Egypt for 30 years, 30 continuous years. Up until January 25, 2011, which was the beginning of the Egyptian revolution, after seeing all the torturing and all the human rights violations, the people of Egypt were saying, this is enough. And so, January 25, 2011, 18 days, Mubarak leaves. Now, where does the leadership go back to? It goes back to basically the military once again. But you know, the Egyptian military, it ruled Egypt for 60 years. And as a consequence, it has great roots in all aspects of human life. All aspects you can imagine. You know, the simple example I just gave you, the military, I guess all the presidents of Egypt, ever since 1952, were generals. The governors of the various provinces, most of them, about 80% of them, generals. The CEOs of major corporations, crown and private corporations, they're generals. If you're talking about the board of governors of various universities, generals. If you're talking about the mayors of the various cities, generals. If you're talking about basically, I don't know, board, you know, city council members, here, you know, as we have here in Calgary, they're also made up of generals. And as a consequence, additionally to that, the Egyptian military has great interest economically, socially, and politically. You know, they're 60 years, what do you expect? They own approximately 40% of the Egyptian economy. And as a consequence, it is of no surprise that 1 year later, after the election of the first democratically elected president in Egypt back in June 2012, 1 year later, there will be some kind of a reinitiation by the military to remove this president and to come back to power. And this was basically done in July 3rd, 2013 through the military coup that has happened. I'm not going to go too much into the reasons for all this, but what I'm really focusing on today, and what I want to focus on today, is that Mr. Jean Bairds' recent visit to Egypt is detrimental and is damaging to Canada's international image. And to answer this question, it's important to know what happened. What is the aftermath from this military coup? The great thing about the military coup is that, you know, it's equal. It affected everybody equally. It involved everybody in the Egyptian society. It involved students. It involved, you know, children, women, men, seniors, everybody. Everybody was not kept alone. In addition to that, it affected people who were against the military coup, people who were on the sidelines, and even more interestingly, people who did support the military coup itself. And I'll give you a simple examples from each of these. I'm going to start with the students. You know, I'm a recent graduate from the University of Calgary, and I can see great contrast between the way students move and behave and, you know, engage in the universities here, as well as what they do over there. Up until now, there's documented estimates of 176 students killed from the various universities all across the country. And 1,347, these are the documented numbers, so they could be more. It's more likely that they are more than this. These are the documented numbers of students put up in jail. And you know, each and every day ever since July 3rd, 2013, the military coup, these students have been protesting in various universities all across the country. All the way, if you go to the west, you have Alexandria University. In the north, you have Kafr Sheikh. On the east, you have Suez. And down in the center, you have Minya and Asyut and all these other universities, as well as in the delta, you have Cairo and Ain Shams. So all different universities all across the country. And the reason the regime is so interested in these students, and basically what happens is all these students, they have protests inside the university. All of them start up peaceful. But because the police and the military don't want to see these gatherings of individuals, they start shooting gas canisters. As a consequence, the students, you know, throw rocks back, and then they start shooting, you know, bird bullets. You know, it's like the small bullets you can use for killing birds. And then it gets worse, and it gets worse, and then you have people from you have some students dead, and some of them injured. Now, what's really interesting about these students is that they encompass a large variety of different backgrounds. Some of them are liberal, some of them are secular, some of them support the Muslim Brotherhood, some of them support Christianity, some of them have no political affiliations. The majority of them don't have any political affiliations. And as a consequence, the student group is the most coherent and the most united group in the nation right now. And as a consequence, the police and the military are very keen to make sure that any protest that these students make and promote is crushed as soon as possible. And let me give you a simple example. Just a few days ago, I think May 21st, 4 days ago, there was an engineering student in Cairo University. He was protesting with with the rest of the students as usual. And he got shot with a bird bullet, one in his head and one in his chest. And unfortunately, this guy went to the hospital later on and died. And you see this student here, who was 21 or 22 years of age, the reason he protested is not because, you know, he's going there for fun or is having a good time or any of these characteristics. The reason he's there is because he wants to see his country better. He wants to see the future of his kids. When he has kids in the future, he wants to see them live in a clean environment, a society that respects its citizen, a society that promotes freedom of speech and democracy, this is why this guy was protesting. He did not ask for, a mansion or did ask for a car. These are simple human rights that he was asking for. But one common argument might be, well, this guy went to his own grave. He was protesting and he went there by himself. It's his fault. He shouldn't have been there. Why you're wasting our time with this? So I'm going to give you a different example of a student who was a bystander. His name was Muhammad Rida, back in November 2013. So this student here was, he was sitting down on the side, also in Cairo University and also an engineering student, on the side, and a protest started developing. Students started chanting. He said, you know what, I'm not into politics. They can do all they want. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to study by myself. Things started getting worse and worse as usual. Started shooting canisters from the police, retaliation by the students, and so forth and so on. Once again, a bird bullet hits the guy in the head, and the guy dies. I don't know what kind of bird bullets they're using. If these are bird bullets, these are really amazing bird bullets, killing people like that. But essentially, after this student died, his mother came out to the various pro-coup TV stations, and she was describing her son, talking about her son. And she talked about the incidents where, she was living in the, sitting in the living room and watching TV, and she was sifting through the different channels, something like that. And then all of a sudden, she comes across a political show. Her son comes out of the room and tells her, "What are you doing? Why are you wasting your time, watching these political shows? Go watch a film or a movie." You see, this individual here, this student, didn't care about politics, didn't care about anything. His main focus, go to university, study, come back home, study, go back to university, study, and continuously back and forth. Yet, he was also hurt and affected by this military coup. And of course, the list goes on and on. Just yesterday, I think there were, let me give you some numbers here just for the sake of it. 19 students sentenced for 5 years each. 19 students, 5 years each. A few days before that, 20 students, 5 years each. In Mansoura, which is in the northern part of Egypt, 3 female students, 2 to 3 years each. And actually back in November as well, some of you guys might know about the 21 female students who were sentenced to 11 years in prison, and the whole media was talking about it, everybody was talking about it. And then because of the international pressure, they reduced it to 1 year. And the list goes on and on and on and on. Now, this is the student section. The next one is going to be the professors. Just here as you have in Canada, the teacher or the professor has a major role not only academically, but also to promote the social life of the students, to help them go advocate, to go join various clubs, go play sports and whatever, as well as to share their experiences with their students. And as a consequence, up until now you have at least 7 documented professors, 7 documented dead professors from this military dictatorship, and 160 others detained. And of course, once again, these are the documented. When I say documented, I mean individuals who, the human rights organizations went to their home, they looked at the first name, their last name, they have pictures of them, they have their profession, they have their age, they have all the information that you need. So this guy is present, he's not like a hypothetical individual. And as a consequence, these professors, their main purpose, just like academically, they wanted to teach the students, but at the same time, they wanted to make sure that their students are supported against this military dictatorships. They wanted to see their students live in a society that was free, that was open, and that was promoting democracy. And what's happening right now is completely the opposite of that. So this is from the professor side. Now let's move on to the women's violations. Here in the West, we are very keen about women's violations as well as children's violations. And I remember seeing videos and pictures and reading reports of women who have been extremely mistreated by the police and the army forces. And I'll give you several examples. I have seen videos of women being dragged down the streets and put into police cars. I have seen women being held up from their shirts, put onto the ground and stomped upon with the boots of the police officer or of the military officer. But these are too general. I'm going to give you one specific example. I'm going to give you the example of Dahab Hamdi. Dahab Hamdi is an 18-year-old woman. She was one day going to the doctor. She's 8 months pregnant. She was going to the doctor with one of her neighbors. It's a regular check. So, she was walking down the street with her neighbor. And then she came across a protest that was coming from the side. Unfortunately, at the same time, the police was saw this protest and they started dismantling it. And, because of the chaos, people going here, people going there, she said, okay, I'm going to go to this building, I'm going to hide in it until everything is done and everything is settled down. So she goes into the building, one guy sees her going in there and says, okay, a police officer, there's a lady in there, go get her. So that guy goes and gets her, takes her, and puts her in jail. She sits along with the other women, she's 8 months pregnant. and her condition is a terrible condition. If you're 8 months pregnant. But what's really interesting is she's about to give birth. About a month later. So they take her and they put her into the clinic in the prison clinic. But what's really interesting though is that as she's laying down on the bed, they handcuff her hand to the bed. And this is to make sure that she doesn't run away. These pregnant women, they're like Usain Bolt style. They can go 37 kilometers an hour. They're really fast. So you want to make sure that they're held up to this, to the bed, that you don't run away. So you want to make sure everything's fine. And so this woman sat there until she gave birth, handcuffed. She was breastfeeding her child, handcuffed as well. And eventually I don't know. Actually, nobody knows what happened to her. I don't know if she's released or not. But once again, this lady, she had nothing to do with politics. She had nothing to do with what's going on. All she had to do was just go to the doctor, do a regular checkup, and this is what happened to her. Interestingly, though, the baby girl that she gave birth to, she named Hurriya, meaning freedom. So this is, I don't know if it's an indication that it's a consequence of the situation or it's random. Who knows what it is. So this is in terms of women. Now we'll go on to children. Same thing that happens to women and happens to everybody else happens to the children. Children on the streets being taken as they're protesting with their friend, and taken into and put into prison along with the other people. And some examples, some very serious examples I give you is, I can remember an individual, a student who was in junior high, I believe, who went to school one day with a ruler with a Rab'a symbol on it. Now the Rab'a symbol, as you might see, is this this 4 symbol here. And very briefly, the history of it is after the military coup in July 3rd, 2013, people were protesting in a square in Cairo, called Rab'a Square. Now, Rab'a Square is named after a famous woman, and when she was born, in the family, she was named the 4th one, meaning Rab'a meaning the 4th one. So that's why she's called. So the square that we're protesting in is called Rab'a Square, meaning the 4th one. So the square is named after her. Anyways, so after this mass massacre that happened August 14th, 2013, a lot of people were sympathetic with these individuals who were protesting for 48 continuous days. As a consequence, the student went to class, with the Rab'a symbol on a ruler. You know what a ruler is? Small measuring device you can use to measure from point A to B. If you don't know what a ruler is, and in case you don't know, and eventually, so what happens there? The teacher sees the ruler that he has, the student, and he calls the police officer. He doesn't go to the security guy and tells him, you should remove the ruler, or he goes and talks to the student and tells him, you shouldn't talk politics in the classroom, or even though this is not really a political symbol, it's a humanitarian symbol. It is a symbol for the perseverance and the resilience of the Egyptian people. For 48 continuous days, they were protesting against the coup. But many people see it as political. Even if you went to the little kid and told him, you shouldn't do this, this is wrong, keep this at home or whatever. But no, the teacher calls up the police. So the police guy comes in, takes him, puts him in jail, done deal. We don't have time for this. Just take the guy and put him, done deal. And these are simple examples of children. And I remember seeing a picture specifically of a police officer dragging away a woman, and the child beside her, he went and kissed the guy's hand, the officer's hand. And in Egypt, when you do this, it's like begging. It's like saying, please let my mother go. And this is precisely what the military dictatorship and the police officers there want. They want these children to grow up afraid of seeing a police officer. That if a police officer comes your way, you go in the opposite direction. You don't ever dare go beside a police station. This is precisely what they want. And this is really interesting. Because a few days ago, or no, it wasn't a few days, it was a few weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was invited to a dinner by the Calgary Police Commission. Now, the Calgary Police Commission is the organization that's supposed to oversee the police here in Calgary, to make sure they're doing all the stuff correctly and they're not outstepping their boundaries. And one of the topics that we had some networking in the beginning, sat down, had some dinner, and one of the main topics that was discussed at our table was how do we bring the student and the police officer closer together, so that if something happens, the student is not afraid to go and talk to the police officer. That if the student is afraid of something, he should go and talk to the police officer quickly and efficiently. He doesn't have to wait, or he's not afraid that the police officer might do something to him. And this is one of the programs that was discussed at the table, which is which is incredibly the opposite of what is happening over there. Now, some of you might have heard about the 529 people that were sentenced to death recently. This was in March 24th, 2013. Essentially, after the August 14th dispersal, 2013, of the Rab'a massacre, as we call it, some people were taken. Some people were angry, I'm assuming, and they were angry, and they went and burned a police station, and one officer was killed. They rounded up a few hundred people, and Later on, they put him to trial. 529 people sentenced to death in about a 30-minute trial. 30 minutes, 529 people. Done deal. You know, if you think about this a little closely, if you have 529 divided by 30 minutes, you know, I don't know, like, what is this, 5 seconds each person? You know, it's amazing how the speed of how you can sentence these people to death. It's amazing. But what's really interesting also is that this was in March 24th, 2014. This was this year. John Baird visited Egypt April 16th. So that was about a month ago, a month later. And before that, in Ottawa, we later learned that Mr. John Baird, I guess, met with other Canadians, or Egyptians, who were in support of the military coup. And he basically brought them down and sat down with them. And of course, you know, he listened to their concerns. So yeah, there's terrorism going on. You know, we have people being killed because of this and this and this. Yeah, the military is the only savior and all that kind of stuff. Even though for the longest time, for about 6 or 7 or 8 months, we've been trying to contact John Baird and to give him our point of view, nothing. We don't get anything. But eventually, you know, fortunately, a week after he goes, we had a meeting here with his secretary here in Calgary, the secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And, you know, we wanted to talk to the guy. You know, we're really concerned about what's happening. You know, we acknowledge that you denounced, you know, 529 people that were sentenced to death and all that. But we're telling you, you know, Mr. John Baird's visit right now is a clear, you know, a clear green card for these people over there. Basically, you're giving them the green light to continue with what they're doing. They're going to continue to torture. They're going to continue to kill, and they're going to continue to, you know, to rape women in the streets as well as in the prisons. And he said, yeah, we're very concerned, and we know we're very concerned. And you know, the word concerned has been used so many times. You know, whenever you see it on the media, we're very concerned. We're very, you know, it's a complex situation. It's very concerning. But what can we do? And essentially, he said, you know, Egypt is an important country, and we're not going to stop diplomacy or talk between Canada and Egypt. But you see, we're not asking for the stopping of the diplomacy. We're asking to not give the wrong message. You know, you can go and visit Egypt after the coup's done. You know, no worries. You know, you have to go and visit at the right time. So we went to this guy, we talked to him about these concerns. We told him, you know, you're giving them the green card. They're going to do this again. 1 week afterwards, April 28th, 683 people sentenced to death. 683. Well, you know, done deal. 683 next. And by the way, this was the same 3 judges in Minya, one of the provinces in the central parts of Egypt. So same judges, same people, 683 others. You know, you might as well, you know. The logic behind some of these people is, you know, people from the opposition, I guess you could call them, is, you know, what's the population of Egypt? 85 million. 683 and 529, 1,200, 0.001%. It's nothing. You know, we have lots of people. You know, let's get rid of some of these people. It's okay. It's no problem. And this is the kind of logic that they have. You know, it's their fault. They shouldn't have protested, and the list goes on and on and on. Now, the last one I'm going to talk about is the journalists. So, you know, like I said, the military coup has affected each and every single person in society. The journalists is the last one. One of our, you know, Canadians here, Mohammed Fahmy, who is the journalist in Al Jazeera network. He's also in jail right now ever since December, as well as with Peter Christie from who is an Australian, as well as Maher Mohammed, who's also, I think he's an Egyptian as well. And now we actually have a different individual. His name is Abdullah Shami. Abdullah Shami is also an Al Jazeera journalist who was detained since August 14, 2013. August 13, 2013. So this was the Rabaa massacre that I'm talking to you about again. So this individual here, you know, he's basically transporting the information. He was there at the square, taking pictures, taking videos, and then he witnessed all this massacre happen. He was caught up, put into jail. 15 days, they renew the jail sentence for him. The way it works in Egypt, actually, I might tell you this, is that you catch the person first, and then later on, when you're sitting down in your office, you know, you have the TV on, you have the air conditioning on, you open up your book, and then you start thinking of charges to give to the person. So you take the guy first, put him in jail, and then you start thinking of a charge for him. So this guy goes to jail. 15 days pass, renew, 15 days pass, renew, 15 days pass, renew. Eventually, the interim president, Mr. Adli Mansour, said, you know, this is a waste of time. We need to change this law. You know, 15, 15, 15. Let's change it, make it 45. You know, 45 days, so every 45 days, the guy's, you know, the sentencing is renewed. 45 days, okay, another 45 days. 6 or 7 45 days renewal without any charges against him. In jail, you know, and because of this, what he did, you know, he thought the only way he can, you know, counteract the effect of these military coupers is to do a hunger strike. And for 110 days or 115 days, I don't know what, nobody knows what the number is right now. He's been, on a hunger strike to trying to put pressure on this military government to, release him. This guy's without charges for 260 days or whatever the number is. If you see these pictures before, this guy was like 220 pounds, 230 pounds, like really built. And now if you look at him, he's like this skinny. And, the only thing he takes is like water and juice. And his head's like, when you have a baby come out, his head is it's bigger than his body. This is precisely what his shape looks like. And this guy, every day he's fighting for this. His own purpose as a journalist was to transfer information. He's not for this and he's not for this. But this is the military dictatorship that we have in Egypt right now. Now back to the main topic. John Baird and his visit to Egypt. Like I said before, the proposition for today is that John Baird's visit to Egypt is detrimental to Egypt's international image. And from all these different situations, all these examples that I've given you, it's quite clear that Canada should not have sent John Baird, or John Baird should not have went right now, at least, because it gives the wrong image that we support the military dictatorship in Egypt. Now, it's really important to note also, and try to compare, I guess, the Ukrainian situation as well as the Thailandian situation. So Ukraine, 29 people dead. John Baird, no, we do support this, Russia, no, all this kind of stuff. Pull the Canadian ambassador. In terms of Egypt, no, of course, it's a different situation. You had people on the streets, they were protesting, and we have to take, we have to support the Egyptian people and their democracy, so-called democracy. And now, a few days ago, I think May 20th, Thailand had almost the exact same situation as the Egyptian one. People on the streets protesting for I don't know how long. The military comes down, they start, and they took over power from the government. John Baird comes out, what do you think he said? We condemn this action, we need, the military should go back to its own, role to protect the country, it should go back to civilian rule. So now the Egyptian situation, you're saying it's okay, and the Thailand situation is saying it's not okay. And this is a kind of, I don't know what other word we can use other than the word hypocrisy. I don't know, but I'm not going to talk about this too much. But this is precisely what we're talking about. And this is what I fear the most, is that one day as Canadians, as people living on this land, that over time we will lose our values. What I've been taught in school, your values, freedom of speech, democracy, accepting the other, involving yourself in society, contributing to the community as well as gaining from it. All these different values and beliefs and philosophies that we have, we're losing them over time. And what I fear the most is that one day, most likely not in our generation, but possibly in the generation thereafter and the one afterwards, is that we as Canadians will become, no, we're not going to become, but we'll go around and around and around and around a central axis. And we'll have 5 main purposes: to eat, to drink, to eat, to go to work, to go to the bathroom, to have kids, and I forgot what the last one is, once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Thank you, gentlemen. And we'd like to thank everyone for coming out today. As you know, Speaker's Corner is for the people, by the people. And we really want to see what people are thinking. And we would love for everyone to share their thoughts with us. So we're now going to open the mic to the public. If anyone would like to have a say, we have 2 choices. You can come up and talk, or I can bring the microphone down to you. It's your choice. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say about the situation in Egypt? Any questions? Any questions for the speakers?
I don't want to go first.
Yeah, firstly, I'd like to echo Aaliyah's thanks for the speakers. They were incredibly eloquent, informative, incisive, and they had to use a Mexican analogy, the cojones, to come up and speak and to share with us of their time and knowledge. I have a couple of questions to one or both of you, and it's simply this. When the Arab Spring started to flower, and there was this massive protest against Sadat, bringing him down, and there were thousands and thousands of people in the square, and they basically made him go. And of course the military comes in the guy. It's obviously a sleight of hand, and it should have been seen that way. For anyone who studied any political history, the military can't be trusted, but the Egyptian people had trust in the military, and they were viewed as saviors. And so they delivered Egypt from Sadat. But then things started to become very blatant, and the oppressive and cruel and sadistic and anti-democratic nature of the current regime started to become apparent to a lot of us. And yet the people are complacent. And I'd like to know if you have any insights as to why the current regime is being tolerated. I understand there's a regime which is being basically visiting a reign of terror. That's understood. But the people rose up before. Why are they submissive now, apart from the fear and the well-orchestrated and well-organized dominance? That's the first question that I have for you, both of you, in fact. And the second question is, well, it's partly a question, partly a comment. I'm a tad embarrassed as a Canadian citizen that we are as complacent in tolerating what's going on. And I'm a bit embarrassed by the duplicity of our own foreign minister and government in its total silence in respect of what's going on there. And yet it's condemnation when it's politically convenient. Maybe the answer is as simple as that. I've gone on far too long, so I've got two questions to both of you. The first question, the second question is, do you have any insight as to why the Canadian government is being so duplicitous, hypocritical, if you will? You've exposed it well. Do you have any insights as to why, apart from perhaps political expediency? Who would like to take the mic first?
I'll answer the first question only, and I'll leave Mohammed because he knows the Canadians more than myself, so he can answer in their behalf. The first question, why the military stand up with the revolutions against Mubarak. And then once we ousted them, they come back and they took the responsibility. The answer of this, because Mubarak was trying to inherit the rulership to his son, and his son is civilian, not military. So that's why when the revolution started against Mubarak, he started to ask the military, okay, go and stabilize the situation, control the situation. They said, no, it's a civilian revolution. We will be in between. We will stand with the revolution against you, Mubarak. Not because of him, because he's trying for more than 10 years to inherit the rulership to his civilian son. And they don't want this. They want to have it all military from one general, as Muhammad highlighted before, from one general to the other one till, we don't know till when they can do something like this. So once they start to back up and to step him back away from the rulership, they said now we ousted Mubarak. Who wants to rule? It's us, the military. The revolutions, they started even to have internal fights between with each other. No, you are from this party. No, we started this. No, you betrayed us in Muhammad Mahmoud and the other squares. No, you wasn't there with us. And they started even to have internal fights. Once it started the election to elect the new president, most of them supported the other guy, not the civilian one, which is Mohammed Morsi. They supported another general, which is General Shafi. But because of the numbers, or because of, I don't know the reason of supporting the civilian one, he started and he won the election, which is the Dr. Morsi. But the problem is, he is civilian. That's why the military, again, they supported the other parties, the other revolutions, in order to stand with them to oust the civilian president, and this is what happened. So they didn't support the military. They didn't support the Arab Spring in Egypt. They supported their idea. They supported their way. We don't need the coming president to be a civilian one, which is the son of the son of Mubarak, which his name is Gamal Mubarak.
My question is, why are the people submissive? I understand why the military is just the same lady in a different dress. But why are what's your understanding as to why the people are so submissive?
I believe because of the media. They are brainwashed them. They showed them that yes, this is the new elected president, which is Dr. Morsi. He's a dictator. He will veil all the women. He will close all the entertainment parks and entertainment locations. He will send us back 1,000 years. His agenda is different, even our own agenda. This is what was happening the very first minute of his election. For a full year, every single day, you go browse all the television channels, all of them against him and his government. Just because, in a way or another, he's not the right president for us. We need another one. We need an open-minded president. Who said that he wasn't? But this is what happened by support and by funded even by the military and their supporters themselves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think in order to answer the first question, it's important once again to go back to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is you have the military has been ruling Egypt for 60 years. And as a consequence, it wants to maintain that, that control, that political, social, and economic control. And as a consequence, they control the various institutions in the country. One of the biggest ones, the media. The judiciary is with them. The police is with them. You name it. Any institution you can name is with them. And as a consequence, you as a local citizen, you open up the newspaper, Morsi did this. The prices of tomatoes have increased, this, and so forth and so on. As a consequence, actually, after the military coup, the prices of things are more than double or triple. But now back to your question, why are people submissive? This is kind of saying that people are submissive. Now, it's important to know how many people are submissive. Now, when the military coup happened in July 3rd, 2013, people said there were 30 million people that came out to the squares to protest. And what's really interesting, though, is that the first number was 14 million. And then it went to 17 million. And then it went to 20 million. And then 22 million. And then 25 million. And then 30 million. And then 40 million. And then eventually 70 million. The whole population is 85. Somehow you have 70 million people on the streets protesting against the first democratically elected president. And so when you go and ask these people, how did he determine? Beautiful, give me any number you like, no worries. How did he determine this number? They give you two sources. The first one is international media, BBC, CNN, CTV, whatever you like. Okay, you say, okay, I'm going to go to the international media. You go to the BBC, you go to CNN. BBC and CNN say, okay, we got these sources from military sources. We got these numbers from military sources inside the country. We got these numbers from people who, predicted or estimated how much people are on the ground. That's point number one. The other one is Google Earth. They say Google Earth. Google Earth is the one that told us. Google rules the world now, right? So they know everything. So you go and ask these people, how does Google do this? They say, no, we just know. You go and ask Google. Google came out with a statement saying, their spokesperson came out and said, we are unable to determine the number of people on the ground because our satellites don't have high enough resolution. That's point number one. And point number two is, they're not real time. Our satellites are not real time, so we don't know what's going on the ground. But what we can give you is we can give you areas. We can give you the area of this area where they were protesting. We give you the area where they're protesting, and then you guys deal with each other. So if you were to think about this logically, take out the areas, 4 people per square meter, and if you think about it, 4 people per square meter, you're looking at 3 or 2 people per square meter. 4 people per square meter is super squished. Assume this is the area that you have. Tahrir Square, this is the area. The other one in front of the presidential palace, this is the area. Maximum number of people you can have in Cairo, about 1 million out of the 17 million. Now expand that to the whole country, you have a maximum of 5 million people. Where did you get the 17? Where did you get the 14? Where did you get the 17? And this is just to help you. We're saying you have 5 million people just to help you. But what numbers are we sure of? We're sure of that we had democratic elections. We had some guy, his name was Morsi, whoever the guy is. No, I didn't vote for Morsi, by the way. I voted for somebody else. I voted for the opposition. But we had some guy who won 51.5%. 4 years to rule the country. If he messes up, see you. In terms of submissiveness, once again, back to the idea, how many people are submissive? I think to those some who are submissive, and there will be some, It goes back to the idea of the media. The media is so entrenched and so wants to keep the military rule because they benefit from it. And the businesses, the businessmen and the business people that own these media, they want to benefit. They want to continue their benefit. And as a consequence, they're going to come on and say the military is good, General Sisi is good, he's a savior, he is our hero, and so forth and so on. When all these people are being killed on the streets and all these tortures are happening in the various prisons. So this is people's submissiveness. Submissiveness is little. It is not common. Now, in terms of the Canadian government, does that answer your question, Gabor?
Yes.
Okay. In terms of the Canadian government in allowing this, what's really interesting about Canada is I kind of feel that it is a representative of the United States. That is what I think. In the situation for Ukraine, Canada has been more instrumental and more vocal than the United States against Russia. It's kind of like, when you go to like a fight, you have the big guys in the back and you have the small guy in the front. Canada is a small person. We're not really advanced militarily. We do have a good economy, I guess, to some people, to many people. We do have, somewhat of freedoms and all these kind of things. But, it's kind of like when you go to a fight, you have the big guys, the US and, Germany and all these people in the back. Canada's in the front, starting to, trying to put a fight. This is precisely Canada. When it comes to Ukraine, Canada's the most vocal. We're going to pull our ambassador. We're going to, we're going to stop interactions with Russia. When it comes to Egypt, same thing. John Kerry goes in a few times. Canada goes. We're very concerned about what's happening on the ground. There's terrorism on the ground. There's torture from, the people, from the noble people they call them, as well as the police forces. And of course, they don't say the police force. They say the people, the regular people, are the ones that are causing all the trouble. And really concerned and really all that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting. Why is Canada doing this? I don't know. Is it because they align themselves with the United States, or is it because of some other underlying meaning? But of course, like I mentioned before, we went to Mr. You can probably figure it out. The Secretary of the Foreign Affairs, Minister of Foreign Affairs here in Calgary. Told us it's very concerning, but we're not going to cut ties. The ties are going to continue, and we're going to talk to everybody. And actually, one thing I forgot to mention, we told him, you didn't talk to us. And he said, yeah, we're talking to you now. So this was 1 week after, John Baird went to Egypt. We're talking to you now. So this was a response. But why? This is something that will hopefully come out in the near future.
Thank you. You have a question.
That's kind of a comment. Hello, my name is Mohammed. I'm from Egypt. I'd like to comment on something. Before I give my comments, it's got to do with the compliance of the people. And I'd like to explain something. It's called the bystander effect. It's something in the human psyche. They've done experiments on it. And what this is basically is that if you find something wrong happening on the streets and you're a bystander walking by, so they made experiments to see how people would react. And what they did is they got a person in a suit and he would lie down on the streets and show that he's in pain and start making sounds. And they wanted to see how quickly people would react to that and go and help him. 5 seconds. Or it was 6 seconds. And as soon as someone saw him, they went and helped him out. They got another person whose clothes were not so good and raggy clothes. And he was lying there busy screaming in pain and stuff. And it took people around 6 minutes to go and help him out. This is called the bystander effect. Now they explain it with two things. They said that people, when they react to something in the street, they want to see what other people are doing. So they found that if nobody goes and helps that person, then most likely nobody will go and help him. Once one person or two people go and start helping that person, you'll find everyone going and help. What's happening? Get him some water. Let's help him out. That's one cause of that reaction. The other reaction is, or the other cause of this is that you look at the person and you try and find, like the person in the suit he's not supposed to be in that situation, right? But the human psyche, a person who's in raggy clothes or whatever, he might be a beggar in the street. If he's in pain, you still need to help him out. But because you look at him as a person who's normally in that situation, you will not go and help him. So I think it's the same thing that's happening in Egypt. When people see people being tortured, human rights violations, the media has not polished that person as, for example, people in Ukraine or people in other countries. Once it happened, the exact same situation in Thailand or Ukraine, oh no, this is bad. all right? And people are like, no, this is bad, and we need reactions and foreign reactions and things like that. Once it happened in Egypt, well, we don't know what's the situation. Maybe the people are fighting with each other. It's complex and things like that. So, first of all, like, to try and go against that or try and stop what's happening, each person, even at an individual level, even if you can't do anything, try and speak out. You need to try and speak out. You need to try and tell friends about what's happening. You need to try and like do something. And once people start doing something, then the rest of the people will have reactions. That's it. We just need one person to start doing something. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Does anyone else have some comments? Gentleman in the green shirt.
Hi, my name is Mustafa. I'm a member of the Egyptian Canadian Coalition for Democracy, and we are a coalition of Egyptian activists across Canada, organizing events and trying to reach out to the media, trying to reach out to to politicians here in Canada. And I would like to talk about what we did when you contacted MPs here in Canada. We tried to contact MPs here in Calgary, Vancouver, Ottawa, Toronto. We contact different MPs from different parties and to try to tell them about what's happening in Egypt and to try to express our concerns of the Canadian government's position towards Egypt. And we got like a diverse response. Some MPs don't know what's happening in Egypt. They're not involved in foreign affairs. And some of them actually expressed that they were surprised by what we showed them of the statistics and pictures, and they promised us that they will raise these issues to the party leaders or to the government. But others were actually more, some of them which know a lot about foreign affairs, actually were more direct. I would like to mention one MP in Ottawa. He's actually former Minister of Defense. I forgot his name. But he was direct, and what his message was that we have the Brotherhood and we have the military, and the military are bad, but to them, Brotherhood are even worse, so we have to deal with the military. That's what the message we got from some MPs, or one or two MPs who are close to the government. So, and he claimed that if you can give us a third party, neither Brotherhood nor neither the military will deal with them. So I really don't know why some politicians believe that they should deal with the military, that they believe that it's Canada's benefit to deal with the military. But I really hope that this should be revisited and reconsidered. People in Egypt, like some people in Egypt don't go to the streets, they don't go to protests. But when they see their friend killed, they decide to go down and protest. And when they get killed, another friend decides to go down and protest. So people are losing their lives every day. People some people are even losing their jobs. Some students are kicked out from the university. So people are really sacrificing. And all we want from the Canadian government, we don't want it to interfere. We don't want it to do anything big, but all we want is that just give their strong message to the government that this is wrong. Try to give a message that they should not deal with this coup. Unfortunately, there was a referendum constitution in January, and Mr. John Baird, he issued a statement. It's on the website, congratulating the referendum and saying that this is the path towards democracy and this is the path towards freedom and equality. I don't know what he was talking about really. This referendum was just a show and has nothing to do with democracy. And even after the referendum, people are still being killed almost every day, almost every week. And tomorrow we have, by the way, presidential elections in Egypt. Everyone knows who will win. It's General Sisi. The elections will be tomorrow, Monday and Tuesday, and I'm afraid that we will see another statement from Mr. John Baird congratulating the elections and saying this is a path towards democracy. And I don't know what democracy is talking about when people are being killed, people are being arrested. People are actually in Egypt are either scared or even disappointed. After the January 25th revolution, many people decided to join parties, many people decided to join movements, but now everyone is scared, everyone is disappointed. People left politics, and it's now just a military dictatorship, it's just a police state. So all we want from the Canadian government is not to support this, not to give positive messages, and should give a strong message saying, no, this is a coup, no, this is dictatorship, and we should accept this. This is against the Canadian values. Thank you.
Thank you. Meryl, you had something to say.
Thanks. You know, I'm not an expert on the Middle East. I take a lot of time and try to read up as much as I can. I just Googled Baird's visit to Egypt on April 18th. That was the Globe and Mail, and I think we can all agree the Globe and Mail is a pretty liberal newspaper as opposed to like the National Post. There was nothing in the article that I read that Baird was given the red carpet when he arrived in Cairo, that he was meeting with the general. He met with the foreign minister, and he discussed Mohammed Fahmy's case. He met with, if I'm pronouncing it, Fahmy, is that how you pronounce it? He met with the Fahmy family. He guaranteed that there was Canadian consular presence during any of the contact with Mohammed. He said, in fact, the Egyptian government was actually one of the most cooperative when it came to dual citizenship issues, about allowing a Canadian consular rep to be in the courtroom and to be in any questioning with Mohammed. And they've allowed that throughout the whole thing. I'm not standing here today because I support the CC general. I don't support any generals being president as a general. I think it's a bad idea. But so far, the consular representation has been good. There was nothing that Mr. Baird raised that said that Mohammed had been tortured in any way or is being tortured. He was denied access to an MRI for about 3 months, but my understanding now he has got the MRI. I think he should be released. I hope he's released. But I'd like to talk on a little bit of a more broader aspect on both what's happening in Egypt and what's happening across the Middle East, and it won't take long. Egypt is a pretty strategic area, as we all know, right back to Sadat. And you know, Sadat was one of my heroes. Sadat was one of the first men in the entire Middle East that reached out to its neighbor, its enemy, for the longest of years, Israel. And we know what happened to Sadat when he tried to do that. He was murdered, he was assassinated, he was killed. Now, Egypt, why is the Canadian government continuing its consular contact and government contact with the state of Egypt? I'm not in the cabinet, so I can't say exactly, but this would be my opinion. I think they don't want to isolate Egypt at this point. I think they're going to wait and see what happens after the presidential elections. Egypt is one of the most strategic areas in all of the Middle East, and you may know right now, actually, the Israeli intelligence is cooperating with Israeli intelligence from stopping terrorism in the Sinai. This cooperation has been going on since the revolutions in Tahrir Square, and that is very important. Egypt has taken a very strong resilience against terrorism on the Sinai and the Golden Heights. So it's very important that that type of cooperation continues. What I would like to see across the Middle East is what we're having right here, right now, and what happened in the square, in Tahrir Square. And just on the issue of the square, I just watched something on Netflix. You can watch it. It's called The Square. You know what I'm talking about. I'll tell you, it was one of the most moving documentaries I've ever seen. It's simply called The Square. Have you seen it? Okay, it had two of the young men that brought tears to my eyes seeing what these young men were doing in women. One of the strongest pictures I saw, and you only caught just a glimpse of it for a second, was a Catholic Coptic Christian with their arm around a woman who was a Muslim. And they had the crescent moon. I think she had a crescent moon. They were both standing there. You had to really be paying attention to see it, but they were standing there arm in arm in the square. And my friends, that is what it's about. And I told my friend here, you know what, this fellow's all active and yelling about the Muslim Brotherhood, and I said, you know, I don't support the Muslim Brotherhood, but they have a right to be here and express their opinion. My personal reflection of what is going on in Egypt is that, and you didn't say it too many times, you didn't really talk, this guy, Morsi, he wasn't just this guy. He was a representative of the Muslim Brotherhood. And my understanding from watching the documentary of The Square is that what Morsi was trying to bring into Egypt isn't what they wanted in the square, isn't what they were fighting for, and isn't what they were dying for. They don't want a government of the Quran, they don't want a government of the Bible, they don't want a government of any religion in particular. They want a free and democratic state in Egypt. And that is what I support, even as a Christian. I'm not a Coptic Christian, I'm a Protestant. But as soon as you go down that path, where you have one religious ideal that rules the state and the government, it's not good. You know, right now, I'll finish here in a couple of minutes, but right now in Iran, there's a Facebook I can't remember what the Facebook page, but the women in Iran are doing something that we would consider just normal. I mean, it's no big deal, but it's revolutionary in Iran. They are, for a brief moment, taking their hijab off, taking a picture of themselves, and putting it on Facebook. It's spreading all across Iran. And it just simply, you know, and I support the right of a woman to wear the hijab. If she wants to wear it, that's her right to wear it. But these women are taking it off, taking a selfie picture of themselves somewhere in a park, in a field, and it's spreading right across Iran. And what are the mullahs saying about it? They should be stoned. They should be persecuted. You're going to make men sin. You see, that type of freedom is what needs to spread across Iran and across the Middle East. The right to wear the hijab and the right not to. And one of the most inspirational pictures I saw recently was of a library in Kabul, in Afghanistan. And it was women standing at the library going to take a book out. Something that simple. They can't do that in Afghanistan right now. Heck, if they could even go out in public and not have to wear the entire burqa and their face not being shown, they'd be lucky if they could get away with that. Hamas in Gaza has not allowed a democratic election in almost 10 years. Yet, Minister Baird has actually met with Abbas on a few occasions. He's been down there. So, you know, I could make the same argument that Minister Baird shouldn't be touching any point of the Palestinian territories until they actually have a democratic election in Gaza, and stop ripping mannequins out of the window and stop stoning and hurting people because if I was to go down there and wave my Christian Bible in the streets of Gaza and say, I think we all know what would happen to me. I probably wouldn't be back at Speaker's Corner, maybe in a body cast if I lived. It's the reality. There's not a lot of freedom in Gaza right now, my friends, and there needs to be. There needs to be a freedom that came from the ideals of Sadat and others, whether you want to be a corrupted Christian, whether you want to be a Muslim, whether you want to support the Muslim Brotherhood, or whether you want to just be one of those students on that documentary from the square, you want to go to school, do your 5 things. I think the 5th one was either die or pay taxes. One of those, but, you know, they're all guaranteed. But that type of freedom is what I want to see across the Middle East. As a Christian, I speak that way. I want to be able to walk in the streets of the Middle East and just be able to be a normal person. And there's so many places in the Middle East that you cannot do that right now. And that, I guess, is what needs to change. So, take care.
Thank you for your views. Kamal would like to. We're going to have Kamal speak first, and then the lady in the. All right, he has given the floor to you, my dear. Please come up.
It's not going to be a long speech, it's just a short one. First, hi to everyone. How are you all doing? Okay, I just wanted to say something. First, for example, just to make things clear, so you can see, of course, that I'm veiled and I'm wearing my scarf and everything. I'm not a Muslim Brotherhood member or anything. And since, of course, I was in Egypt, I can speak more about things there. Probably more of women, because that just came on the previous comment, and I would like to make it more clear. Like during the past, or during the year that Morsi was in charge, he didn't really it was said that he didn't really do what the people in the square wanted. It's not really that way. He was doing what the people in the square wanted. They wanted democracy, they wanted freedom, they wanted equality, they wanted freedom, and he did all of those things. But the things that he wasn't able to control the country. The military was controlling everything. The previous regime, all the spoiled previous regime, everything was still in charge. So they worked against him and everything, including the media. Like whatever he did, if he went outside and went to another country, they would say, oh, he's going to this other country and he's begging for the money and he wants to make relationships with them, but we're a strong country, we don't really need any other countries. Just strange things that were being said in the media. Whatever he did was being translated in a different way, in an opposite way, actually. And the media used to said that he's going to make everyone veiled and everything. He's going to make the Islamic things be... it's going to be forced on people, and that's not right. It's not going to be forced on anyone. He didn't actually do anything. Didn't do anything. Not a single thing that says that it's going to be an Islamic country, or is not Islamic. Egypt is an Islamic country, but it's only Islamic because the majority of people there are Muslims. Okay, but the thing is that he didn't do anything to force people. He didn't even put one law, okay, that would say that something is being forced on other people. Okay, not a single Christian person was being persecuted or killed in his 1 year of ruleship. On the other side, the military killed many. There is actually a certain massacre in Egypt that happened, okay, and many Coptic people were killed there. Okay, and even in their graves, there's a picture of their grave, and it's written on there, those people were killed by the military army. Okay, and that was in the part of the part of time or the era before he ruled. Okay, so he wasn't going like the media used to say that he would make things. Okay, but he didn't make anything to make the country not a democratic country, or that would make anyone's freedom being opposed or held or anything. Even people screaming things about him, or I'll give you again a simple example. Okay, his presidential place. Okay. People went there and they were actually starting to break the wall, okay, with machines and everything. And he asked this security of his palace not to kill anyone. Okay, it's that much that he gave people freedom. Okay, I don't say that was right. Actually, I don't think that was right. And the media kept saying things which is opposing to it. Okay, so what I'm saying, or just what I wanted to add, is that he wasn't going to force people doing anything against their will, and he didn't do that during his year of ruling. Okay, it's just that everything was against him, including the media, including on the, on the field. Like he would have problems in the streets, being done by people in charge, spoiled people in charge. Yeah, sure.
Can I ask you why then there was such a concern that Morrissey was not giving full rights to women in the Constitution, and that there were demonstrations on the streets in Cairo by Coptic Christians that saying the Constitution was not guaranteeing them a right to express their Coptic Christian views under a Morsi government.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that he was asking, I don't know if you heard his question, he said why were there demonstrations by Coptic women saying that he didn't give women enough freedom in the Constitution, isn't that? Okay, so the thing is that, as I told you, they were opposing him all the time and saying things that he didn't do. If you read the Constitution yourself, like you hear this in the media, and when I hear, it's so funny how you'd hear things from the media and say, oh wow, did he actually do that? How could you do such a thing? And when you go and read the Constitution yourself, you'd be shocked that it's not, it's like it was written in the Constitution that everyone has the right as an individual, like has all the rights and all the freedoms. That's what was written in the Constitution. Okay, but what was happening is that it was a fight. It's a field fight, and like all the spoiled previous people in charge, all the businessmen who are holding everything, holding the media, holding everything, okay, with all the money they have got because they have been stealing all the money from the country for so long. They were actually, it was a war, okay, and it was a war from beneath. It was war working everything. They were riling things up by all their power, whatever power they had. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I guess so. I'm sorry.
Hey, don't say sorry.
No, don't say sorry.
No, sorry for taking so long. That's
Oh, no, not at all. You were answering questions. Thank you. We have one more gentleman over here who would like to come forward. Yes. Tavis?
Who says he's a gentleman?
Exactly.
I'm not the only one picking up.
I'll start with the Arab Spring, the so-called Arab Spring, and it's an inspiration. It's easy to say that it's an inspiration, but I mean, for the world, it was an inspiration in the sense that it's something that is buried deep in us. This idea of liberty, of freedom, of democracy, of all the ideas that we can't describe in single sentences or paragraphs, is something that inspired in the world a movement, and it spread. It came out of, well, it comes out of long oppression, long suffering, but it spread into Europe and other parts of Africa. It came to North American shores, and we see it in different springs, in the Maple Spring and the Occupy movement and the Indignados movement, and we see this everywhere, and it's powerful because it's a message. It's powerful not just because of what it was in itself, but because it was a message that is inside all of us and it burns deeply, and it's dangerous. It's dangerous to empire. And it's right now, does it feel like we're sitting in empire now to any of us? Does it seem, it's a lovely day out, we have some nice chairs out, we're having a civil conversation, mostly. We're able to bring our kids out. It's safe for us to say I'm Christian or I'm Muslim without reprisal. It feels good. I have no want for food. Generally, we don't have want for food or housing or shelter. It doesn't feel like we're in an empire right now. We have no military wandering the streets. But that's not the way it is for much of the world. Our tentacles of empire, our armies, which are American armies, are everywhere. That empire is exported everywhere else. We don't feel it. We're on the seat. We're in one of the seats of empire. It's an oily one. It's an oily one, but its masters are in office now on Parliament Hill. These masters, this head of empire, it's comfortable here. These masters, to them, it is not permissible. To empire itself, it is not permissible to have this freedom, to allow this thing to burn in us deeply, to allow people to have democracy. It is no mistake it's no tragic coincidence that light brown people that live in the Nile Valley happen to have a dictatorship of 60 years. It's no coincidence that we don't allow democracy in Palestine or for Palestinians to determine their own future. It is no coincidence that Syria faces these same questions, that Bahrain, that Yemen, that Ukraine, everywhere face these same problems. Nigeria, it is no coincidence. It's not because they are brown, it's not because they are Islamic that they are fundamentally prone to dictatorships and oppression. It is the consequence of empire, an empire that does not want this freedom. So, sorry? Wall Street, yes. It has many, many faces. So when I hear stories of 683 people sentenced to death, when I hear stories of people shot and killed, and a single story is tragic, a single one, and it's important to take the inspiration of those souls that give their lives to dismantle our empire from which we benefit mightily. It's important to take each one of those stories and bury them, take that light that they give us and say, that's not an Egyptian fight, that's not a Syrian fight, it's not a Bahraini fight, it is not an Islamic fight. It is all our fights. It is our empire to dismantle. It is our responsibility. Baird is our monster to take care of. And I do it gladly. I do it gladly.
Bravo.
Thank you very much, Tavis. Very heartfelt. We could feel that. Does anyone else have any comments they'd like to come up and share, or questions they'd like to ask?
So, thank you. So, hi everyone. I would just want to reply to that gentleman. First of all, I tip my hat to you for being informed. Not everybody cares about what happens beyond the ocean. In Gaza, just one reply. There are Christians and there are Muslims. And it was never, as Travis said, about the religion. Because between Hamas and Fatah, both of them are Muslims and they're fighting about the power. So I know people in Gaza that are Christians and they are supporting the government in Gaza. So what happened to the government in Gaza is similar to what happened in Egypt. Again, there's a fear about the Muslim Brotherhood. I don't know anything about them. I'm not a supporter. When people start to get killed and murdered because of a political view, that's it. There was an election. He won 50.5%. I don't care. He won. That's it. Then he should complete his term. It's the same thing happened with Hamas. They won an election. And everybody frowned upon it because they have an Islamic point of view. So, again, it's never about the religion. It's mainly about politics. People want the chair. So if we want to promote democracy, let's promote it really. Okay, so a democratic election, no matter who wins, he has to continue his term. You want to bring him down, you bring him down again with an election. So the statement that you said, if I erase the Bible in Gaza, you will be killed, that's not going to happen. I grew most of my life in Egypt. We had neighbors who are Christians. I had friends who are Christians. Our teachers were Christians. We never had any issues about being a Christian and a Muslim. The problem is to rule the people, you have to divide. There were bombing that happened in churches in Egypt. And later on, we found out that it was actually the police who used to do it. And it came out in the year of the revolution, 2011. So I guess it's never about the religion. Here everybody practices the religion and everybody's happy. Back home, Christians practice the religion. And as I told you, we had friends who are Christians. And we have Christians pro coup and Christians anti-coup. So I think it's never about the religion, so to speak. And yeah, thanks all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you for your view. Gabor, if you'd like to come up.
Just to conclude.
Yes.
Are we gonna finish?
Just to conclude.
Thank you, everyone. We'd like to. We appreciate your coming out on this day. And Speaker's Corner is held every Sunday, starting at 1:30. We have some music to start. And here's Gabor to close things up for us.
Well, she stole my thunder. I was going to thank the speakers, the interveners, and the audience for your participation. It's meaningful for us. As I stated at the outset, we're trying to raise the level of intellectual discourse in town and to bring relevant topics. We show up every Sunday, and we hope to see more of you. Thank you very much.
Well, that was good.